We are live. We are live. So welcome to the Energy Ergonomics live cast, right? We are on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn,
Woo!
first time ever. We have some viewers coming in. This is an interactive session, so we can see your comments. So definitely say hi. Let us know where you are from. Today is the first of several conversations related to human design, specifically authority in human design. We believe that it is the most important thing that you can learn. If you had to learn one thing in human design, this is it. And I should probably introduce myself a little bit. I will talk about myself more. My name is Mélissa Peng. I am the creator of so many things, actually, as I think about it. But for today, we'll specifically focus on woofulness and energy ergonomics. Everything we do here is to help you get re-centered, connected to yourself, for you to come home to yourself, so that in that knowledge of self, we can extend that compassion, that learning to others. And then we can create better worlds, better systems that work better and are more inclusive. So that's the short version of it. I'll tell you more when I introduce myself more, but we already have Jaclyn here. I already have her up. I have you doing the head nod, Jaclyn.
Yep. It's the equivalent of the podcaster.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry.
You're
But
good.
Jaclyn Michelle is here from Interior Creature. It's a big deal for me actually to have you here. And I know you will have a slide. You're going to introduce yourself. But I wanted to say that for me, Jaclyn came to me at the beginning of my human design journey. I have been on a now 12-month long experiment. First, I was like, I'm going to do this for, I think I said 100 days. I will follow my authority. And this choice has led me on an entire journey of finding myself and finding all the pieces of myself and of my ancestry in a big way. As Jaclyn knows, I have completely changed everything in my life, my business. This channel is new, by the way. So like and subscribe, right? We've just started this. And this is the first in so much goodness that's coming from this collaboration. But why I wanted to call this out is because it's not often that you see two women coming together who do a very similar thing, and who have competitive products. We are very different, but we don't believe in that. We're here for collaboration. We're here to give you diverse viewpoints on the same topic, essentially. And we're starting a new thing. And so we appreciate you being here for this day. And with that, I'm going to leave it to Jaclyn to kick us off on emotional authority. And then I'll be back later to share on tips on how to make it real. All right.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen because my love language is PowerPoint. So I and Keynote. I'm not, preferred. I would have a preference of either one.
Hey,
But let me share my screen. Here we go.
oops.
And can you see it?
You are all good. We can
Awesome.
hear you. I can
Perfect.
hear you. If y'all are here with us, definitely post in the chat. Let us know that you
Mhm.
can hear Jaclyn and see Jaclyn as well.
Perfect. Awesome. So I wanted to just introduce myself really quickly before we go into the emotional authority. So my name is Jaclyn Michelle. In 2018, I started my blog Interior Creature. It's a popular human design resource. It's got tons of blog posts. Basically, I started it because I needed to tools myself to kind of figure out my own journey for, you know, to get back to myself. Basically, I had spent a lot of time in a corporate situation that just did not feel aligned and felt super out of balance. And I needed something because I've always been very spiritual, very esoteric, very into all of this. I was looking for some sort of system that would support me figuring out how to come home to myself because I had found myself in a situation that just felt very unaligned and antithetical to who I was. So as I was kind of learning human design myself, I decided to start a blog that would create a resource that brought the system into like very practical, actionable language. Because when I was starting out, that thing didn't exist. Now, luckily, there are so many people out there talking about human design with from so many different diverse viewpoints, which is why I love collaborating with Mélissa. But anyway, so Interior Creature helps about 20 to 30,000 folks a month start to just that process of understanding what is human design, where does it come from. And around that time, I opened my digital doors and I started giving readings. So I've given about 2,000-ish readings since 2018. And I've also kind of expanded over the past year or two to offer a bunch of different entry points into systems like human design, the gene keys, astrology, with the specific focus of shadow work and deconditioning. So right now, I offer readings at 3 different entry points to make sure I'm meeting people where they are in terms of their human design journey. I have folks who come to me who are brand new to the system, and I love being that first introduction. I also have folks who've been studying it for a while that kind of hit a roadblock when it got to some of those more kind of intensive elements. So there's different entry points to kind of come in and start that conversation. I teach classes to teach you the human design system. There's a community that's launching actually this weekend called Catalyst, where we are kind of coming together and digging into these systems that we can use to, start just again finding that realignment and finding that purpose and anchoring ourselves, so we can be the best version of ourselves as we walk through the world. And then I have a program called the Karmic Studies Elevator, where we really do that intensive, deep work of shadow work and deconditioning in community. If you already know a little bit about human design and you're like, who is this person talking to me? I always like to share mine. I'm a generator. I have sacral authority, but I have kind of a weird chart because it's predominantly open. So I always joke that I'm the projectors generator, in that I have a lot of that. A lot of the traits that we associate with projectors actually are very present in my chart. And I'm a 1-3, which again, if you understand that my love language is PowerPoint, that does not surprise you. And I have the right angle cross of the Garden of Eden. So last little thing about me before we dig in, and I just wanted to kind of call this out. I am obsessed with rescue dogs. Mélissa knows that is one of my passions. I have 3. So if you happen to hear any sort of grunting, snorting, barking in the background, it's probably one of my 3 little guys, Misha, Joe, and Murphy. You may hear them in the background. They mean no harm. They just get very excited about human design and want to share in this process with us. Okay, so enough about me. What you came here to hear about today is emotional authority, what it is, how we utilize it, etc. So I'm, as the 1-3, I'm the nerd. I'm going to take care of the what is it and kind of set you up for success. So when Mélissa digs into the how to actually activate it, align to it, utilize it, like you have a good foundational understanding. So emotional authority. One of the basic tenets of human design is this idea of trying to basically decondition the way that we make decisions. So many of us, from the time that we were little, we're not given kind of guidance around like following our intuition. Like personally, I was raised by an accountant and a professor, and they're very pragmatic people. They're very thoughtful people, and they're very big on like, make a pros and cons list, rationalize it, think it through, use people as sounding boards. It was very intellectual when it came to decision making. The challenge for me then is like, well, that's actually not how I'm wired according to human design. I'm wired to make very intuitive decisions. So one of the premises of human design is actually the vast majority of people out there, with the exception of 2 different types in human design, have an authority which is anchored in the body. And we've have this conditioning that when we go to make a decision, we're supposed to rationalize it, etc., when actually we're supposed to tap into our intuitive voice. And one of the things I really love about human design is it empowers you with the knowledge to understand what that intuitive voice is, because it's a little bit different for each one of us, right? So we want to start with this premise of getting out of our brain, getting into our body. And if you're here and you have emotional authority in your chart, the thing we're going to listen to make decisions are our emotions and the emotional kind of wave that we go through when feeling into kind of massive decisions. So I want to talk to you about first the emotional solar plexus center, what it is, what it does, how it feels, and then we're going to dig into the different types. So that's another thing. If you've pulled your human design chart and you're here because you know you have emotional authority, make sure you're also checking out the type that you are. And I'm going to walk you through as well how to utilize your strategy in conjunction with your authority in a moment. But let's actually ground ourselves in what the solar plexus is and what emotional authority or solar plexus authority is. So in the human design chart, you'll see there's the graphic on the screen. there's that little purple arrow pointing to the right side on the bottom of the chart. That center is called the solar plexus. I always like to remind people it's metaphorical, not physical. I know that's not where the actual solar plexus lives in the body. It's a metaphor. But anyway, so people who have that center closed. So if you have it closed in your chart, it's colored in. It's like shaded in. It's not going to be white. It's the most powerful center we can have closed in our body. And the way human design basically works is our closed centers are our clearest, loudest, truest, most consistent voices. So folks who have emotional authority, basically your emotions are the things that are the most consistent, the most balanced. When you get to your decision, they're the thing that's the most consistent. They're trying to guide you toward basically what you feel you're most emotionally invested in, what resonates with you emotionally the most, and like what you deeply, deeply care about. And so when you go to make a massive decision, your body is basically going, well, I need to figure out a few things. I need to figure out what I care about, what I'm emotionally invested in, what resonates with me the most. And typically that results in a wave. And there, Mélissa is going to talk about a couple of the different type of waves I believe that people can have, but a lot of times people have to either, pendulum maybe between big feelings of this is the worst idea ever, I can't do this, to pendulum to the other side of this is the best idea ever, I can do this. But basically your body's going through what I like to call an emotional dress rehearsal. So say you were making a massive decision around like taking a job offer, right? The emotional authority, it wants to feel into literally every single nook and cranny of that decision. And just like actors and actresses before opening night go through like a props, costumes, makeup, lights, sound, hair, dress rehearsal to see how everything's going to feel before they actually commit to opening their doors and inviting in an audience, the emotional authority wants to do that for your massive decision. So it's basically like, let me call in all of the little details I need to know. Let me pull in as much information as possible. And I want to explore emotionally every nook and cranny of that decision. So it does feel like you're dress rehearsing the decision. Like I'm going to feel into it and have all of the emotions if I say yes to this job offer. And I'm also going to feel into it and have all the emotions as if I say no to this job offer. And through that kind of, ebbing and flowing of emotion, you end up netting out with this feeling of calm, this feeling of kind of exhaling, of knowing where it is emotionally, that what feels like best in your body, what you feel most is most emotionally resonant, what you care the most about. And that's the decision that you want to go with. Now, the challenge with this is that it takes a while. So for folks who have emotional authority, what I hope you've done is signed up for some of the other authority sessions that Mélissa and I are going to be teaching over the next couple of days. Because if you're, for example, a generator or a manifesting generator, for small decisions, you're not going to use your emotional authority. Could you imagine if we had to emotionally dress rehearse, like, do I buy that blouse? Do I have coffee with that person? We would get nothing done. Like nothing would happen, right? We want to reserve the emotional authority for like decisions with like stakes, consequences that are going to take massive time, energy, money, resources. So if you have, say, a sacral defined in your chart, your spleen defined in your chart, your self-center, like I want to invite you to come to those sessions as well, because understanding how those centers communicate to you is going to help you understand how to make smaller, like quotidian, day-to-day type of decisions, right? So emotional authority can take an afternoon. It can take a week. It can take several years to get that clarity. I like to think of it as like an 80-20. Like when you get to that point where you emotionally know what it is that feels the best, it's going to feel like an exhale. And it's also going to feel like this clarity around like, yeah, this is the thing. Like when I talk about it, I can feel how much I care. And I don't have that like pit of my stomach knotted, like this isn't right, or a sense of kind of emotional panic or emotional like grief over the thing that I'm not doing, right? So we want to combine this emotional wave with our type, right? So reflectors are the only types up on the screen that cannot have emotional authority. They have lunar authority because they don't have any centers in their chart defined. But every other type on the screen is a type that can have emotional authority. And everyone has in human design a slightly different strategy for making decisions, right? So we have people who are generators like myself. Our strategy for decision making is waiting to respond. Well, how does that connect with my emotional authority? I'm going to walk you through that in a minute. If you're a manifesting generator, you're still a generator. You have to wait to respond, but sometimes that actually behooves you to do a little bit of informing along the way. And actually informing as a man gen can help you understand more deeply where your emotional resonance kind of is living, right? So that's something we don't want to let go of. As a projector, Remember, you're the guides in the community. You're here to be seen, heard, valued, included. As you're feeling into your wave, you're also waiting to make sure that you have recognition and you feel like your involvement is actively sought. So we'll talk about that in a moment. The only type that doesn't have the word wait in their strategy are manifestors. And what's challenging about that is the emotional authority is not instant, right? It's the most powerful center we have in our body, and it takes its sweet time. It's really going to figure out, like, how do I feel? And again, sometimes that could take a day, a week. My mom, for example, is an emotional authority manifesting generator. And I swear it took her about 3 years to figure out, like, when was the right time to retire. And every time I would talk to her, I could tell she was a little bit closer to like feeling into like what felt the most resonant, right? So manifestors are designed to kind of initiate and move fast and get these ideas and just walk toward them. So how does that work if you have emotional authority, right? I bet that's something you're asking. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So if you have the word wait in your strategy, which is everybody but the pure manifestors, the wait is not, a lot of people misinterpret the wait. A lot of people think of it as like, well, I can't do anything until something physically comes my way or someone else initiates me. They get way into the weeds is what that means. The way I understand wait is you're waiting for your body to talk to you. That's how strategy works with authority. The wait, if you have it in your strategy, is prompting you to stop, feel into your authority before you take action. So if it is a massive life decision, do I take this job offer? Do I expand my family? Do I sell everything, buy a van and go travel around the country? Like, you're waiting to make sure that in the case of emotional authority, you're like, yes, I care about this so deeply. I am emotionally invested. Like, it feels like it so resonates with me on a deep level. I've gone through my entire wave. I felt into the highs. I felt into the lows. I have that 80% clarity of like, yeah, this is it. This is the path forward, right? So you want to wait and feel that first before you take action. And again, manifestors, I got you. You're a little bit different. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so let's walk through each of these different types again. So you might have also seen emotional authority depending on, again, what software tool you were using to run your chart. You may have seen it listed as either emotional authority, solar plexus authority. Some people refer to it just as the emotional wave. But basically, again, it is that most powerful center in your body. And it is trying to help you figure out, how do I feel? What am I most emotionally invested in? What resonates with me the deepest? Of the types that can have emotional authority, as I mentioned a moment ago, everybody but reflectors. Reflectors can't have emotional authority because their solar plexus is open. You have to have it closed in your chart for this to be your authority. And I want to also flag that too, like as someone who's a generator who has an open solar plexus, I've definitely been guilty before of making decisions when I felt emotional. Thank goodness I found human design, because it's like, no, that is not supportive to you. That is not helpful to you. In fact, that could be self-destructive. So for emotional authority really is reserved for people who have consistent access to the intelligence and the information from their solar plexus center. So again, generators, manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, y'all could have emotional authority. And again, like I mentioned a moment ago, we only want to utilize it for massive decisions because it can take so long. And you're the only arbiter and kind of decider of what a massive decision is for you. Something that feels minor to someone else might feel major to you. So the dipstick I normally use is I look for like time, energy, money, resources. If it's asking for a big commitment of any of those things, then I think it's worthy of really digging into your emotions and how do I feel about this? And how is it going to, how is that emotional either connection or disconnection going to impact my ability to follow through? Because what's cool is the emotional authority and the solar plexus is an energy center. It's one of 4 we have in our body. And so that energy is going to power your ability to commit and follow through in that decision. So just like we think of the sacral as a battery, it's like, energy for everything we're doing each day. The emotional authority is like, yeah, and if I care, I can amplify that energy even more, right? Okay, so we're going to use it for massive decisions only. If you're a generator or you're a manifesting generator, what you're doing for the strategy, maybe your strategy is the way to respond, you're going to wait, feel your wave, let it pass, and you're looking for about 80% certainty. So when you're talking about your decision with like a trusted friend, a family member, it's going to feel like an exhale. It's going to feel like this very clear, like, yeah, this is it. This feels good in my body. If they tell you you're wrong and you should be doing something else, it's going to feel like a gut punch. It's going to feel like maybe a personal attack. Like, you're going to feel emotionally like, ooh, that your body's going to kind of reject it, right? But you want to get clear on your feelings first. And again, it depends on how your centers are wired. Again, some people find, helping, like, discussions with other people as a way to figure out how they feel. I have a really good friend with emotional authority who journals, and she's really good at kind of like just putting it all on the page, and that gives structures to her emotions. But again, whatever your kind of tactic is for allowing your body to feel all your feelings without judgment, without trying to suppress them, without trying to rush them, just letting your body feel how it needs to feel. Once you've got that kind of exhale, like, this feels good in my body, this is what I care about, then you can take action and respond by either like addressing the need, filling the void, answering the question, whatever it is that needs to happen next. If you're a projector, it's a little bit different. You're checking in at several different points. So projectors, remember, are our guides, whereas man-gens and generators are the doers. They're the builders, the creators, the accomplishers. The projectors are the folks that guide that work, right? So for them to be impactful and effective as a guide, they basically need to make sure they are seen, heard, valued, and included. So they're checking in with their emotions multiple times throughout the decision making process. So if it's like, again, a job offer they were offered, they have to ask themselves, like, okay, on this team, through this interview process, do I feel emotionally invested in these people? In this opportunity, in this situation, do I feel seen, heard, valued, included? And when I go to, like, once the invitation is extended, like, do I feel emotionally invested in the outcome? Like, again, do I feel like my involvement is actively sought? How do I feel about that? So you're really kind of trying to anchor yourself in your emotions. That's why for projectors, I always tell them, like, if you have a decision to make, like a job offer, ask for that time to emotionally process, to really get anchor yourself in your feelings without feeling like rushed. Like, snap decisions, unfortunately, I know the world is really wired to want everything yesterday, but projectors with emotional authority need that breath, that space, that time, and you deserve that breath, that space, that time to know how you feel and allow yourself to kind of be there, right? And you're looking, again, same with the manifesting generators and the generators, you're looking for emotional investment, emotional resonance with the people, the opportunity, the circumstances. Like, really try to feel into every nook and cranny of that decision. Like, how is the commute? Am I emotionally invested in that? The team, our goals, what I'm going to be doing each day. Like, do I care? For pure manifestors, oh, we're going to talk about that in a second. I forgot that, jumped on the bottom of the screen there. For pure manifestors, you're using your strategy of informing as a tool to navigate your wave. So you might want to take some time by yourself first, and just kind of like figure out what's your initial kind of feeling about the thing. What do you care about? What feels most resonant? Again, you might want to look to some of your other defined centers to see if you have like in a moment, like an immediate, in the moment guiding kind of yes or no. And then as you're taking kind of micro steps toward that thing, right? Like, maybe you're asking more questions of the hiring manager if it's the, job offer scenario. Maybe you're talking with friends and family. When you tell people, hey, I got offered this job, I'm thinking of taking it, your body is going to have an emotional response to that, right? You're going to feel certain feelings, because there's something about manifestors that's really magical, is when because the throat's the seat of manifestation, right? And we know manifestors have energy connected to that specific center. So it could be emotional energy from the solar plexus through a channel. It could be from the heart center. But basically, it's like your desire or your emotional investment, like, helping to aim and power your manifestation, right? Your where your thoughts become words, become actions, etc. So as you're telling people, either I'm not going to take this job or I'm totally going to take this job, check in with yourself. How do I feel? Like, is it, am I tumultuous through this wave? Are you feeling sort of an expansive feeling in your body of excitement? Are you feeling a contraction of like, oh, this does not feel good in my body? Check in with how you're feeling as you're telling people. And, like, again, watch the language you're using. Like, if your language is further to the commitment to it and it doesn't feel good in your body, maybe you're not done the wave yet. So the same kind of rules apply. You really want to allow yourself to feel all your feelings, and you want to be intentional about who you're telling, how much you're telling, and how you're telling it to them, so that you feel like you have the freedom and the independence to really allow your wave to guide you, and not feeling like beholden to the first thing you said. Because, again, as the emotions are processing, your yes and no is going to be all over the map for a while, potentially. I mean, some people have tiny little ebbs and flows to their wave. My really close friend with emotional authority, it is like massive pendulum swings where it's like, this is the worst job offer ever, and the next day, this is the best job offer ever. And you need to allow yourself to feel all of that. It's almost like your body needs to feel all of the things to figure out what feels good and what doesn't. And again, what action, as you're taking those micro actions, are eliciting the most emotional connection and the most emotional resonance, the most emotional, like, yeah, this is it. So you're looking for those kind of cues as you're going through. And then final thing before I turn everything back to Mélissa, which I'm really excited for her to walk you through. Actually, we're going to stop for Q&A first. I forgot. We're going to do a little Q&A live, and then we're going to turn it over to Mélissa, and she's going to talk you through how to put all of this into action. But I did want to quickly address something called split, triple split, or quadruple split definition. If you have a center that's defined, like say, for example, you're a manifesting generator and you've got both, say, your sacral and your spleen defined as well. If you have emotional definition and you're trying to make a massive decision, look at where your splits are. Look at which centers are in conversation with others. And again, this might be something that I know there's resources on my website, on my YouTube channel. I actually have a whole video about how to like look at splits and definition and how to utilize it for decision making. But you want to basically look at the centers that are going to make really quick split in the moment messages to you about what's a yes and what's a no. Like the sacral does that, the spleen does that, the self and the heart are fairly quick as well. You know, you want to basically look at those little circuits and find out which centers are talking to each other. And we want to bring as many of those centers in conversation with the emotional authority as possible, especially if you're feeling torn. I always tell this story. I had a client a few years ago who was a nurse, and all of her colleagues really wanted her to take this promotion. And she has emotional authority, but she also has like a sacral that's not connected to her self center. And when she was with other people, because her self is open, they were telling her, this is your next step. This is what you should be doing. And in the moment, she was like, well, maybe I should be taking this promotion, this job that everyone else says I'm really great at. But when she got back in her own energy and like sat with what her sacral wanted, and then really gave herself time to feel into it, she realized, actually, I'm not emotionally invested in that role. I'm not sacrally lit up by it. So, and what was helpful to her was talking to her partner who actually connects her sacral and her solar plexus together. And so it wasn't about her partner's take on it. It was more just being in her partner's energy allowed her body to kind of speak to her with one voice, as opposed to like maybe getting different messages from different centers. So again, we want to kind of just consider that. So I'm going to take off I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and yeah, let's turn it over. I think we're doing some questions and answers before we dig into, we'll take a couple of those before we dig into Mélissa with her actionable next steps.
So thank you so much for that. I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat. I know we've got some people from Illinois. I know we've got India in the house.
Yay!
So we are here. We're here to answer your questions. We have a little pause here to answer questions. I'll get into the action steps. We'll answer more questions. And so if you are in the room, take advantage. We can see your comments. Comment in any place you are watching from, the YouTubes, the Facebooks. And then we will respond. So I'll give people 1 minute, I think, to ask questions. And in the meantime, can you tell us about Catalyst, Jaclyn?
Oh, Catalyst is my baby. So it's funny because I call Mélissa a catalyst all the time, because I think of the word catalyst as like someone who kind of lights a fire or ignites a spark in you that kind of sets you on the right path. And that's one of the things I really admire about you and your work. Like, you're such a catalyst. You're a catalyst for me. You're a catalyst for everybody you come into contact with. But it's funny, you and I both have a deep connection to that word. I wanted to create a community where we could catalyze each other. So there's two levels to it, or two kind of separate communities. There's a community called Catalyst Spark. It's for folks that are just kind of like starting their spiritual journey. They really want like a community of folks because they're learning the language. Like maybe you're stumbling into astrology for the first time, or just learning about human design, and you don't want to, maybe you want to feel that support of, yeah, we're all learning and we're all learning together. There's a community for you. And our first events this weekend, we're actually doing birth chart basics and learning the foundational elements of human design. So there's information on my page about that. We would love to have you join us. There's also Catalyst Fire for folks who are a little bit more farther along in their journey, and they just want to nerd herd. They want a coven of folks they can nerd out with and have those higher level conversations. So it's more of just like, both communities are really valuable. It's just the level of depth of our conversations is going to be a little bit different. But we also have a book club. There's a monthly event. So definitely, if you go to interiorcreature.com/catalyst, you can see about both programs and, see which community is right for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
Hmm.
sharing that. So,
Of course.
first question coming in from
Ooh,
Sarah.
I
Sarah,
see.
thank you so much. So Sarah says, "Hi, I'm an emotional with the voting channel 55 to
Woo.
39, and what happens to me is sometimes I really don't know my answer. I wait and I don't get a clear answer. Do you have any suggestions?" Now I'm going to pop out of the stream so that you. Oh, or actually,
And
yeah,
you can answer this question too.
that's true. You. I was like, I'm gonna pop out the stream, but actually, I'm gonna stay here. But you do first, Jaclyn. If I have anything to add, I'll chime in totally.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really so hi Sarah. One of the things that I find, at least when I'm working with folks who have this channel, is this channel responds really well acoustically to having big discussions about, whatever the decision is, right? So it's interesting too, because the root center, having that thing defined, right? Your root loves a timeline. And what I find sometimes is that folks who have this center defined, need to feed it a whole bunch of different information, a lot of times through conversation, that are going to give your body something to respond to. Like the emotions need to feel into every nook and cranny. So we need to give it nooks and crannies to feel into. And then B, the root likes a deadline. So like my close friend who has this channel, if she knows like, oh, I need to accept this job offer by Thursday, that's going to help catalyze her into getting a clearer answer. So sometimes giving yourself like some sort of timeline, especially if it's an external deadline, can be really helpful to kind of almost like get your solar plexus juices emotionally flowing. Maybe that was a gross image, juices, but you know what I mean.
Hey. I have 59, so I 55. I don't have the full 39 to 55, but I personally have the 55. And one of the things that I've learned to embrace over time is this emoting channel and comes with melancholy sometimes. Melancholy that can be deep. And so I'll go from like super happy to like in the depths of melancholy. I used to call her my artiste Mélissa. She's the one who liked to drink wine, smoke cigarettes by the window and ponder about life and live in ennui. But she's also my most creative side. And so now, when these moments come, when I have those dips and these ebbs into melancholy, I turn to my more creative skills and talents. And that actually will be supportive in getting me to answers. And so I don't know, Sarah, if you have like a creative hobby, a craft, a skill. If again, the acoustic thing is real, music is huge for me. And so for me, it's a mix of like making malas and listening to music, working on different parts of my being, but that will help me get a little bit more clarity when I'm in the part of that wave. But moodiness, emotions, passion comes with this, and I love it. So Sarah does have a hobby, and so I would say for this specific wave, which is very like it's an up and down situation, just know that like in those moments of melancholy, there is gold and you can really leverage that. And so that might be it might be the moment to try those things, and those things may turn into the catalyst that does give you the answer.
I think I want to piggyback on one thing you said too. Like one of the things I think is that shadow work specifically has taught me is like not censoring our emotions. Like if it feels safe to do so, like not trying to, because I know when I sometimes feel those lows, I'll try to stop it or I'll try to repress. And like that, just like Mélissa said, that's where the gold is. So if it feels safe to do so, giving yourself a container, a space where you're like, I'm going to go be sad, and that's okay. And like I'm gonna let whatever comes up come up, because there is so much. Yeah, so we don't want to like censor those parts of ourselves. Like just like you said, it's just there's beauty in there.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say to you, and that's coming to me, is that sometimes we want to get a certain response. Like we want an outcome. Like we would like an answer to this. And this has been my journey as I've been going through the like following my authority. So I'm sacral, but following my authority has taken me on so many twists and turns. And so when I'm in these periods of melancholy that does come with my 55, sometimes I'll have an epiphany. That epiphany is a creative project, a thing. Like crystals was a whole thing. And then I was like, I'm going to buy a bunch of crystals and start a crystal store and make malas. And if I had sat there and like tried to force myself to get to the other answers or to build the other things I thought that I needed to build, I would have missed out on this entire journey. And so I would say that if you're sitting in your wave, trying to like just wait for an answer, some of that is like, I'm going to say something, but don't allow the waiting to turn into like inaction, meaning I don't want to say don't wait, but like don't wait to do other things in your life is what I'm saying. So, right. So don't allow that waiting to turn into inaction,
Preach.
because that literally may be what you need to do in the moment. Like your authority may be taking you on a journey that you cannot see. You will see it one day in hindsight, hopefully, but you cannot see it right now, but it will guide you where you need to go.
Yeah. Surrender. All of this is an act of trust and grace and surrender.
Yes. All right. So we've got another question popping up, and I am so sorry. I do not want to butcher your name. I'm going to go with Sarab, and feel free to write the pronunciation and I will totally correct it, because I am very much that person who wants to pronounce names correctly. And you're saying, I have a head on just solar plexus root defined, which is supposedly called a wide split, as I've heard. Any insights on that?
Yeah. So you have if the head and the ajna are connected, but then obviously not the solar plexus root, because we don't have anything connecting them together. What's beautiful is, remember, what's the first rule of human design? Get out of your brain, get into your body. The head and the ajna, whereas they are fantastic, they are also not, they're going to analyze us every which way till Sunday. Like they are there for, I like to call them, they're the execution and the logistics, not necessarily the decision makers, right? So I always tell people that's probably a really auspicious split to have, because we don't need to bring these guys online until like it's time to like, until our solar plexus root, for example, kind of knows what it needs, has a little bit more clarity. In fact, like we're going to talk about this a little bit when we get to splenic authority. The brain sometimes can make us second guess, to make us what if, to kind of talk us out of following what our body knows to be true. So what I always try to get people to do, and it's easier said than done, is try to like turn down the volume on the brain, try to turn up the volume on the body. And then once you have that clarity, then the brain is like, great, give me something to do. Logistics, especially with your closed mind. Like the head's like, great, give me a problem. And the mind's like, I'm gonna solve it right now. What are we gonna do? So it's actually a better split to have. I wouldn't worry about bringing those to connection for big decisions. Unless it truly, truly doesn't make sense to you. But like, that's probably going to be very rare. That's my take.
I love that. I love that. So we are going to keep, if you guys have more questions pop up, keep popping them in the chat. We'll take them in a second Q&A section that is coming after I go next. And what we're going to be doing, for those of y'all who are trying to figure out, should I stay tuned, is we're going to really talk about how to apply everything that Jaclyn just shared. And we are also, if you've popped on because you're on YouTube and you haven't registered, please go and register, because I'm going to be sharing. I love that. Sarah, we're going to go there. Sarah,
yes.
How can I turn down the brain and bring attention to the body? You're in the right place. We're going there right now.
Yes.
And so definitely make sure you register with your email, because that's where you will receive these activities, these guided practices, and in detail. Because right now I'm going to go over the Clips Notes version for you. But if you're watching this, you're on YouTube and you're like, I need this in my life, make sure you go and register. And if you're watching this and this is past, don't worry. When you go to the registration page, you will be registering for the replays. All right.
And seriously, what Mélissa created, I was like blown away when I saw it yesterday. Like you really want to get on that list. Like she has some amazing, like just action steps and resources for you. So she's going to catalyze you. So you got to get that email.
Oh, thank you, Jaclyn. I'm going to pop Jaclyn out of the stream. But we will have her back at the end. Give her a little break. There we go. And I want to introduce myself. So one, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being here with us for you, and also just for humanity. I know that sounds really intense, but for me, the work we're doing, this idea of energy ergonomics, or even just finding your own home, is not just for us, but it's for a bigger and broader ability to create a world that is more inclusive and that is more compassionate. My name is Mélissa, so Mélissa, and I'm just going to introduce myself. If Jaclyn's love language is slides, my love language is websites and videos. And so you will see me giving you websites and videos. I love speaking. I am very much an auditory person, and yeah. And so I'm just going to introduce myself this way. I am Mélissa. I'm an MBA corporate escapee, is what I like to say. So I did my MIT. I did my MBA at MIT. I did the whole traditional route. I was in corporate for almost a decade. Working at big brands, so NBC, Universal, Macy's, Hewlett Packard, and whatnot. And then at some point in time, I loved my job. So I loved marketing and I loved building businesses, but I didn't love the environment and it wasn't working for me. And in retrospect, I might still be there if I had understood human design. Who knows? Because there were so many things and so many ways in which people interpreted, viewed, etc. Me. And some of that was all the isms and all of the systematic issues we have in the US. But so much more of that was also like, I didn't have the ability to communicate myself. And if I could have, we might have been able to transcend that. So it doesn't make the world better, but it really could have made my world better. And so when I started, so I did the corporate path. I started working with women, specifically helping them launch their businesses in areas of their passion. And in that process, I started struggling as a manifesting generator who's multi-passionate and who has lots of energies. What I was bringing in different types of clients, namely the one I'm thinking about was a manifester. They couldn't necessarily, I could give them my energy for a time, but they couldn't necessarily keep up with my speed, the clip, the things we had planned. And so one of my manifestor clients came to me and started talking about her design. Now, mind you, she was using her design as an excuse. She would smile if she was listening to me right now, but I could not actually tell her anything because I didn't understand human design. So that's what brought me into the journey of learning human design. And since then, I've been living my design for the last 12 months. I've been focused on following my sacral at every turn. And it has brought me on lots of twists and turns. I ended up completely tearing down my business. I'm now building it back up in a very different way. I've invested so much more money than I would have anticipated on myself. Which was pure gold, right? But was also scary. And I've traveled the world and it's brought me on a journey to very critical places all over the world, like Jamaica, Tulum, back home to Miami. And in every place that I went to, I collected a piece of myself. And so now I can firmly say that I'm finishing this year whole with also all sorts of really cool and new nuggets. I now know that I was already a proud great-granddaughter, but I'm a proud great-granddaughter of a Jamaican medicine woman. I've learned about crystals. I've become a sound healer. I've been practicing vibrational sound therapy, somatic breathwork, qigong, yoga, and I'm just obsessed right now with helping humans find themselves, and then also find themselves in partnership as well. And so that is me. And that is why I'm here today. The other thing is I've always been obsessed with action. Back when I was teaching marketing and I was doing my workshops, I would say that if you are leaving my room, you are leaving with an action and you are going to walk away. And I would actually stand at the door and be like, you cannot leave until you give me an action. I was that person. And so we're going to do the same today. I know we've got 2 people at least who are interacting on the chat, but I see that there are more of you here. And so if you would love to message me before you leave and tell me what your action is going to be at the end of this, or DM either of us and let us know what you took from this, what your action is. We put a lot of time into these things and it's always beautiful to get feedback and also hear how people are using it. And so what I'm about to show you is your homework. So if you have, if you choose, if you like it, if it's aligned, and if you get the yes, okay? But it's your homework if you want homework. And the way you receive it is by making sure you're registered in email. So if you got emails from us today, you're already there. And I've just kind of skim this down for the purposes of our presentation, but it will be a lot more detailed when it comes through. And so we are working on easeful emotional authority. Let me get my screen in here. And so this is the woofulness site you'll be redirected to. So we'll have the replay up here, and then all the beautifulness of your actions are going to be here. I've stripped out a lot of the text because it was kind of gnarly, but you'll have more text and some video. I decided I'm going to record some video, but we're going through 3 steps, right? We're going to feel, we're going to heal, and we're going to flow. And so feel, I want you to witness your wave, right? Our goal is to become the happy witness of your emotional wave. Your wave is beautiful. As I was reading the original transcripts, I nerd out on the transcripts from Ra'uruhu. There are many references to this idea of a flower blooming, right? And all of the stages and just kind of seeing that whole transition. And it was so romantic and beautiful as I was reading about it. And I was also, and I love flowers, y'all. I'm surrounded by flowers. And then I was thinking, that's your wave, right? It's this beautiful thing that is blooming. And it can be kind of obnoxious to watch a flower bloom. We like to watch it bloom very quickly, right? It can be kind of tricky to like sit there and watch it bloom. But if you can really get into it, it's just a moment. And so become the happy witness of your wave. So over the next 30 days, as decisions come your way, sit with them and start tracking your emotional wave. And so I have some clarity questions that I'm giving to you. So I'm going to give you a couple right now. What type of wave do I typically have? How does it feel to be in my wave? What type of resistance am I finding when I'm trying to follow my authority, whether it's from others or from myself? There's a tip here: find clues to your wave in your chart. And so when you get the final, when you do get the email, you'll see a little bit more detail here on the specific channels and the emotional hallmarks of each channel. We already talked about one, right? That 39 to 55, 22 to 12 also flows in that way. And that is the kind of bumpiness, right? But it's like you've got a kind and calm seas to bumpiness, and then kind and calm seas to bumpiness. And so moodiness, emotions like melancholy may be cues that that's your wave. We've got the really bumpy ocean. That's the up, down, up, down, up, down. And that's 36 to 35, 41 to 30. And so there's also a relationship to desire here. So all of these things, the emotional hallmarks, the cues for what your wave might be, we'll include those. I'm going to just give the build, because that was another one that Jaclyn mentioned: 19 to 49, 37 to 40. So again, different hallmarks, different ways to poke around in your chart and get nerdy with it. But you're also you, and you can literally just sit there and track it, watch it, journal it, document it. And think about it. So what's interesting for me is I do not have emotional authority, but I do have a PMDD. And so for me, that gives me a different time periods, these dips in my moods. I'll just literally get depressed for absolutely no reason. It's fun having 55 in the PMDD. And what I've learned is to track it over time and really pay attention. And so journaling, other things may be a way to witness your wave, but that's the big one. Calm. Calm, I've created an acronym for you called CALM. And so this is my framework for those with emotional authority. The C is catch your breath. Catch your breath. When I say catch your breath, I actually literally mean to catch your breath. Take a moment, take 3 breaths, breathe deep, and catch your breath. Breath work is such a good recommendation for people with emotional authority, especially because when you get into like the nitty gritty of emotional authority and the solar plexus, it's also linked to the nervous system. And there's nothing like breath work for calming the nervous system. And so catch your breath, take some deep breaths with the longer exhales. So this is coming back to Sarah's question: how can I turn down the brain and bring attention to the body? When we are breathing and we are focused on our breathing, and I'm talking like, with a really long exhale. When we focus on breathing, it's very hard to keep anything else in your mind. And when you sit there, and you might need to go 10, 30 breaths to get in it, but I love breath because meditation is sometimes harder for people to get with, but everybody can breathe, right? And so when we start with the breathing, it gets us back into our body. So catch your breath, get aligned in your body, listen for your truth. And then coming back to what Jaclyn said, make decisions only if you're at that 75 to 80%. And make a commitment to continue to surrender and to enjoy the flow as you watch it unfold. All right. So catch your breath, get aligned in your body, listen for your truth. If you find that you cannot be calm, it is not the moment to make a decision. So practice calm. Learn your unique full body yes. And so there's 3 pieces here, and I bolded clear of assumed, expected, and outcomes. I want to talk about that. So if this feels good, it feels good, right? I am calm. And then I'm clear of assumed, expected outcomes. There's a little bit, I feel like there's an elephant in the room because I just put that on the side. But so many times when we struggle to follow the guidance, it's in part because we're trying to hold on to a good emotion, right? Or we might be trying to like hide from confrontation or things that we may believe are a bad emotion. Both of those have an assumed outcome. And so again, this idea of surrender, release expectations is really important. So as you're making those decisions, check in and say, are there outcomes I'm assuming? Like, am I really like just thinking about this decision and just saying, okay, this is this decision. This is what I know is true in the now. And if it goes, it could go sideways. I don't want you to go into the the loop of that. But do I have any assumed and expected outcomes that are hanging out in here where I might need to consider this a little bit differently? And then for our full body, we get to use our define centers to help us. And so these are actually mostly Jaclyn's words, right? Because I learned this from Jaclyn when I was first learning. So define sacral. Do I have energy for this? Now I added the now. It's a big now, because I would be that person be like, yeah, I got energy for this. I don't have energy for this now. I don't have it now. And so you're like, but I have energy for it in like 5 days or in 10 days or in a year, right? So I add the now just to keep us grounded in the now. But if you have a defined sacral, like I have energy for this now that needs to resonate with you. I can commit to this now if we've got a defined root. I want this now if we have a divine heart. This is aligned with me. This comes in my words now, me or my brand now. Sometimes I'm very into the business decisions, right? And then the spleen, this feels safe. And I love the word healthy too, like healthy for me now. Okay. Then the now plus how method. When you go into this, there'll be a little bit more about this, a little video from me. But I always think about the now, like I will get to places where I know I want something, right? My heart is like, yeah, I want it. My sacral is still saying no. And so sometimes we want to force a decision, or we truly believe that we have a calling for a decision. And oftentimes I find that when that's the case and we're still not getting the yes, there's something that needs to change as it relates to the now or the how. And so it might be a simple tweak of you swapping out a timeline or having a different conversation with a person, getting some clarifying answers. And that little bit can change your answer. And so try the now plus how method. So that's the first piece. And then we have so many more things in here, but we're going to run out of time. So I'm going to give you a very quick run through of what we have left here for you, because we've got to go talk about splenic authority. And just know that everything is going to be in your exercises, in your emails. So heal is my framework for shadow work and also like expansion work, abundance work. It's a combo of shadow and abundance. So we are going to heal any judgments regarding your beautiful wave, any patterns related to your glorious wave, We're going to heal from experiences related to your fantastic wave, right? So patterns, experiences, judgments. These are places for us to do shadow work. Heal is my bigger framework. We hold space. We expand into the vision of what's possible. We take aligned action, and then we create practices to let it go, let it flow. So for each of these areas, there will be some prompts for you to work through the heal framework. And then flow. The ideas in these are a love letter to your emotional authority. I love doing these empowered love letters. I love writing first the real letter. How do you really feel about your emotional authority? And then adjusting it with positive language or abundant language, expansive language that really is where we want to get to. Okay. Create woofulness practices. Woofulness is woo-woo plus mindfulness. Okay. And so we're going to create practices that allow us to surrender and then anchor us in our truth. There is a truth here that when you actually follow your authority, you get better results. And so reminding yourself of that and where that has happened with a series of affirmations can be very helpful. And lastly, for energy ergonomics, this is kind of my business work section. Just know that when you have this type of authority, it's important to take it slow, especially in bigger partnerships. So long courtships are advisable. I feel like I'm talking from a different century. And make sure you have a communication plan, because your authority doesn't trump everybody else's. And so it's important to find ways to honor yourself and honor other people. And for emotional authority in particular, finding ways to be able to communicate this wave in advance so people know what's coming is super helpful. And so with that, I'm going to add Jaclyn back to the stream. I know we started a little late, and so I want to just, I don't see any questions popping in. I see some. So, Lisa, and anyone else who has questions. So the @ handles that you see here are our Instagram handles. And so I, Lisa, am copy pasting your question. And definitely, if you're okay with it, I'm obsessed with like partnership. So that's kind of fun. Definitely ping me that question on Instagram and we'll get back to you. If you're not on Instagram, I'm my name, Mélissa @curlyexecutive.com. So just add a .com to the end of it. All right. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it for this session. We are so happy that you were able to be with us today. And we look forward to, to getting deeper into this topic and deeper into other topics. I would just say one last thing, Lisa, I would say it's really important for anything as you are working with a partner to essentially have a plan. And so the one thing I would say is have a real conversation about what would be helpful in that communication. If your partner isn't already in tuned with their human design, I would say that's the discussion to start. And then I highly recommend both getting readings. When I first started, I got a reading with Jaclyn. I do partnership readings as well. And so I'll give you that as a little tidbit, and then definitely message me and I can tell you lots more. All right. We are sending you all so much love. We are going to be back in like 2 minutes for a splenic authority. And we look forward to continuing to do this. Thank you so much.